So we're expecting the Christmas event in the next couple of days here over on the NA version of the game. I'm personally speculating that it's going to be Wednesday because I believe that's when the Thanksgiving gacha ends. And so they might be waiting for that to finish before they go ahead and drop the Christmas banner, which is really just a rerun for Skadi. And that's the topic for this video. Whether or not that they actually do drop it later today or Wednesday or whenever they do that, this is going to be a kind of contentious banner for a lot of people because I think all players know that Skadi is actually a good unit, and they know that they probably should summon for them if they want to use their quick units. But it's also going to be a bit of a hard sell because we know the next 2 years worth of releases over here on FGO, and we know that quick is good. Like, it's still viable. It's not like it got worse. Again, in my video on Kagetora that I put out yesterday, I was talking about how power creep in FGO doesn't really invalidate other card types or other units. It's more or less that other things come out that are just better, right? Like Castoria does so much more than Skadi and Ruler Skadi do, I would argue, combined for the party in terms of CQ content and for farming, that it's really hard to justify going in for both of those units unless you really want to use your specific waifu or husbando that happens to be quick. You know, think of your like MHX alters, your Tyras, maybe you want to use Tai Gong, maybe you want to use Bradamante after she gets her buffs. Regardless, unless you specifically want to go out of your way to use these quick units, you know, the other card types are just better and feel like you're getting more bang for your buck out of them. I mean, even with Koyenskaya, even though I'm an arts apologist, like I absolutely love everything arts. I love the looping. I love using Castoria. It's just really fun to do. Just seeing like 200% NP refund, it's ridiculous. But even with Koyenskaya, I gotta bend the knee a little bit and, you know, accept the fact that it is very, very convenient to just not care about any of the setups when you're doing like farming nodes or anything along those lines, like 90 plus or 90 plus plus. I mean, even right now on JP, I'm having to kind of like think of these interesting little setups with, say, Draco and Summer Ibuki to try and get this 90 plus plus down. And if you saw me farming the last event, the Ptolemy event, you would know that my NP1 Durga was really struggling to even 4-turn that node. Like, it was getting a little bit rough, but if I had a Buster Servant that was at a decent NP level or had a power mod, or God forbid, you know, Koyenskaya gives you 2 power mods, one of those being man, you know, that could help you just absolutely destroy some of those 90 plus or 90 plus plus contents, and you really don't have to care at all about your team building. I could just slap in Morgan, I could slap in Arjuna Alter and call it a day, especially if you have Oberon with a servant that is capable of Black Grail farming. It's just a wraps. Like, it's completely nights out. You're using Melusine, you're using Archetype Earth, right? I'm going to call her Archetype Earth now because I keep getting heat in the comments for Arsuite, and I'm like, you know what, this time let's actually have a serious discussion and not bring that up. But you know, if you have any one of these servants, you can really just invalidate a lot of these very tough nodes. They are trying to do some things now on JP where they're like, okay, the turn 1 guy is really, really insane because we know that you buster units like to loop your skills back, but even then, it's generally like not that big of a deal. I think the last event was like, what, like a 400k enemy or something along those lines. Like, it really wasn't anything like super hard when we had a node that was a little bit challenging for buster units, right? It was actually kind of fine. Like, as long as you had, again, decent enough units that were up to the challenge, you could get it done. And for Skadi, she has a very rough time right now justifying summoning for her. Now, I personally will be summoning for her. You'll see a video whenever her banner drops. I will be going in on her because I would like to use my quick units. But if you aren't, you know, as blessed as I am to have already, you know, Castoria, Oberon, Koyenskaya especially, you might be setting your sights over on Koyenskaya's banner for New Year's. She's getting a rate up alongside her new version that's coming out for the event at the end of the year. And if I was to advise somebody, I would probably tell you to just go for Koyenskaya, the assassin one, to make your life a lot easier, because realistically, with your free waiver, any 50% AoE buster unit is going to be compliant with that. And I know that farming is not everything in the game, but it is 95% of all content that we're doing, maybe closer to like 93, 92 at this point, but you know, who's counting at this point? But regardless, it will just make your life a lot easier if, you know, even it's 80% of the game that's farming. Even if it's that much, it's still gonna make your life a lot easier if you just have an easy time going through farming. And with so many servants getting buffs now that are getting like 30, 50% batteries, or they have the ability, like say Artoria, who's on every single banner, that can loop her NP on her own NP, it's just, you have a lot of options. It's not even like, oh, you got to have like maximum broken K-scope, or you got to have a black grail for them. It's like, they have a decent enough battery you can loop, then you'll probably be fine, which I guess is also one of the bad things if you're just doing double caster Skadi farming. Realistically, you do want to have yourself a K-scope. Not needing a maximum broken K-scope because now we have a pen skills does make things really nice, but because quick units struggle a bit more than, say, arts units to loop and don't have someone like Koya and Skadi that lets them loop their batteries back, your quick units are going to be very reliant on getting like that free NP from the jump, and not all of them are good enough, or let's say that the support is not good enough to let you get away with using subpar farming options. Like, let's say Caskill, you wouldn't exactly consider him on NA currently. He's a bit better now on JP if you want to use him for this, but let's use NA for an example because this is what it's relevant to. You can use Caskill and kind of get away with him in certain nodes just because Castoria is really, really strong. Like, Castoria's NP gain, the arts buffs, the attack buffs, and even that own NP that she can fire because you're arts looping that can give you additional attack if you really need damage. You can get away with using arts units that really should not be capable of looping their single target or AoE NP as easily as they are. Whereas Quick, it's a hard sell because you have to have specific units and very specific setups. I mean, even look at some of the farming setups for Space Ishtar when she initially came out. You know, people were like, oh, we're going into like the Skadi meta. How does Space Ishtar do with it? And Space Ishtar was this amazing unit that could pretty much fit into any team comp. If you wanted to do just like hardcore buster farming, even before we had, you know, Koya and Skadi, you just wanted to brute force your way through, you know, nodes. It was kind of possible if you had like a really jank account because she had the massive battery and her damage was pretty good. If you had Nero Bride, you could use her as an arts farmer, but the setups for quick farming were super limited. I forget the guy's name, but he used to, and I don't know if he still does, but when an event would drop, he would drop these like octagon, like hex diagram looking things for the different farming setups that you could use different people for and who were like optimal for events. And for Space Ishtar, there was always like maybe 1 or 2 quick setups that were you could actually use, right? It wasn't like, oh, some of these are like a little bit more reliant. It's like these are like the only 2 that are realistically going to work, and it was always very rough and didn't feel super great. And I know, you know, we're not banking Skadi's viability on just Space Ishtar alone, but it's more of like a problem with not even just Skadi herself, but also for, say, the state of like what Quick is in right now. And I say all this, and you know, we're like 6 minutes into the video, and I'm saying all this because I don't know if I can tell people to go like, yeah, go summon for Skadi. Well, as much as I love using quick units, it is so much fun to use like double Skadi on JP. Now I finally get to experience the Skadi meta proper, and I get to do like these insane refund turns, these really fun crit turns, especially because the quick chains are buffed over there, mighty chains are buffed, so it just makes them feel a lot better, right? They feel better to use. But half the time I'm like, I'm doing this for fun, which, to be fair, is the main point of the game. If you're not having fun with the story or the gameplay, then why are you playing in the first place? But it always is like this sinking feeling in the back of my head that I could be doing things a lot easier and more effective by looping my arts units, or just absolutely Krakatoaing people with some buster setups, even without Koyenskaya or Oberon on JP. I'm like, I could definitely just use like Merlin and bring a friend Koyenskaya or bring a friend Oberon and just obliterate people. And it just kind of feels bad. I can't in good faith recommend to people to go summon for Skadi when Koyenskaya, who's just the superior unit overall, is going to be coming out right around that corner. And I also know how much investment it requires of a player to have to really use Caster Skadi effectively, even once you get Ruler Skadi next year, who makes things a little bit easier. But I still remember this when year 3 was coming out. I was letting people know, it was one of the first videos on the channel, that Skadi's not worth quitting over, because even if you pull Skadi, you might not be able to use her effectively, because not all of the quick servants are quick looping viable. Now, sure, some of them, like say Bradamante or the Assassin Okita, got fixed recently on JP, so they work a lot better as quick loopers, and there's still hope for them. I mean, even with, say, Ryder Suzuka, who I'm warming up to a lot more, or Saika, who just came out, they all feel really good to use, these more modern quick units that are starting to come out. But it's still just really hard for me to be like, yeah, go summon for Skadi, she's really good, because she feels like one of those units that's, she's good, asterisk, right? As long as you have like a good servant, you probably want to have K-Scope, which we will get for free next anniversary, so that will help you out a lot. But at that point, just summon on the Skadi banner that's coming out closer to the anniversary, so you can actually get some usage of her, you know, right after you pull her. Like, you pull her and then it's like 2 months after his anniversary hits, you can pick up the free K-Scope. Obviously, I can understand summoning right now because maybe you want to save closer to anniversary for Archetype Earth or something, but you get what I'm saying. It's a really high investment for not as much of a payoff, which Again, I'm not saying that to be like, oh, Quick sucks, Quick is bad. Throughout this entire year, I think I've made like 4 or 5 videos just as a huge defender of Quick. There's a lot of people that are coming out now being like, oh, people are always hating on Quick. I've been trying to defend Quick the entire year. It's just a very hard position to take because it is still good. It's not like Caster Skadi or Ruler Skadi or Quick in general got worse. In fact, they've been getting better with Mighty Chains, Quick Chain update, Ruler Skadi being able to do like the Skadi system is really strong. You can do Black Grail farming with certain Quick units, right? But it just feels like Quick is catching up to where the other guys are at. I mean, with Castoria, you can already do Black Grail farming because of just how her skill set works. With Buster, you have certain units that can Black Grail farm, but they don't really need to do Black Grailing for some of the other guys because they just synergize really well with Oberon. Sure, Castoria can use Oberon, but at least they can Black Grail farm. And, you know, Quick can use Oberon as well, but not all of their units can Black Grail farm, and they're also not Buster, so they're not really getting the full power of the third skill like the Buster meta is. So it just kind of leaves them in a very weird spot. And the reason I'm kind of mentioning, by the way, for newer players, why Oberon and Arts works really well together is his third skill interacts with the Black Grail buff. So even though the Arts units are getting that Buster buff, they're still benefiting heavily because he's increasing the NP strength of Black Grail, which is giving you 60 to 80% extra NP damage. So your damage goes through the roof. Like, it's ridiculous. And not all Quick units can really use that. She is a very limited servant to use. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, she's literally a limited servant, but she's very limiting in her abilities to be used. Now, obviously, if you don't care about like quick looping or anything, you want to use her as a single target, by all means, go for her, right? Like, she's super, super great as a quick single target. But I understand that the main thing that FGO players are going to be wanting is someone that can help them farm, because that is the majority of the game. And if you try to like meme on that or be like, oh, well, farming's not everything. Yeah, you're right. Farming's not everything, but it's the majority of the game. And if you don't have like a nice farming setup, unironically, you might burn out. Because if you tried to farm some of these events by doing like 5-6 turn clears by just beating up the enemies, it's exhausting. I've been there. I'm there right now on my newbie account that I just made to go through the story again to reread for Tugunska Sanctuary coming out. And it is brutal to try to farm some of these events, just like slowly knocking people down by just punching them slowly. When you could 3-tier farm, it makes your life a whole lot easier. You get more mats for the time you're farming. If you have limited time, you get through your farming a lot quicker. You can just log in, do your dailies in like 10 minutes and then dip. Or if you're like doing an event, you could just do your 3 runs for like your AP and then dip out, as opposed to like maybe taking like 30 minutes to 45 minutes to just kind of like slowly punch through people, which obviously that might be a little bit extreme going to 45 minutes, but depends on how much you want to farm. And, you obviously save a lot more time if your time is more limited. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below on that part in particular, that it's very rough to recommend it to new players because farming with her is very rough. But the single target aspect, I think that's where Quick shines. In fact, I want to make like a whole discussion video talking about that Quick being the looping archetype might be wrong, and we should just make Quicks just really good single target units, because I don't have any complaints if you want to use double Skadi for single target destruction with the new Izumo you pulled. They're phenomenal with that. They do really good damage because they have the highest NP scaling for their percentages. If you don't know, the Arts, Buster, and Quick NPs all have different damage percentages, and because Quick is like the quote-unquote weakest card type, they get the highest damage scaling, so that's why you see them doing a lot of damage on some of the damage charts, right? That's the secret for the Quick guys, right? And then being able to loop and drop stars is always really fun, because sure, you can drop a lot of stars and say like your Buster setups or your Art setups, but usually you need some setup. You need like a Merlin, a Proto Merlin, some 20-30, stuff along those lines, whereas Quicks just do that naturally, right? Even like the worst Quick servants can drop an insane amount of stars, especially with the Quick Chain buff that we're going to be getting in the future. So I don't know, if you want to go in for the single targets, you really want to use Tyra to destroy people, and you're going to use her in like all the CQs that you know, or you have like a bunch of Quick guys lined up like I do, that's the main reason. I mean, I would say to go to summon for her, but unless you have the setup ready to go to use Skadi, I wouldn't recommend going for her if you're looking for a farming support, because you have Koyan Sky who's going to come out on New Year's. And I will say, when it comes down to using single target Buster servants with double Koyanskaya or single target Quicks with double Skadi, I know Koyanskaya does allow you to loop your NP, but unless you're going to be finishing something in 3 turns, Skadi actually does feel a little bit nicer. I've been doing some testing with the NP buff now that I have Skadi and everything on JP, and the whole like gag of her NP being bad might be a little fallacious, right? Like it might be a little, misconstrued. It's actually not that bad. Like the attack buff, the crit buff, and the one dodge do come in clutch. I do like it quite a lot, and I might also talk about that sometime in the future. But I'd like to hear guys' thoughts on that one as well, about them, just maybe using quicks as more single target guys, or maybe they need to introduce something like critting on NPs, which I might also make a video about, because that is something that people have been talking about. But yeah, this is kind of my general just late night TED talk on why you should or should not summon for Skadi. I hope it helped you out. If you have further questions, I stream FGO usually every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes I might stream on like Tuesdays, Thursdays FGO if there's something going on, like a banner drop or something that I really want to hit, or if there's just like lottos or raids going on. I'll definitely farm those on off days, but Tuesday, Thursdays are usually other things or off days for me, so I can collect my sanity from doing daily FGO content, which if you enjoy, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave more discussion ideas in the comments down below, because I love having these discussions. I love talking about the game because it is a lot of fun. As much as I will rag on the problems that FGO has, it is still overall like my favorite game to play, because Fate is my favorite IP to just kind of sink my teeth into, as I am a massive nerd who just loves getting into the lore of different gods, heroes, and all sorts of parables and whatever they start to throw at us. But with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace, late guys.